Time for business with Kate Moody. Kate, good to see you.
Hi, Monty.
So 2 weeks after getting the green light from regulators, Boeing 737 MAX plane has returned to the skies.
Yeah, with a lot of members of the media on it. It is undoubtedly a bit of a publicity stunt here, but it's also a key step towards trying to regain public trust in that model. American Airlines flew a revamped 737 MAX plane from its headquarters in Dallas, Texas, to Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's planning a first commercial flight using the MAX on December 29th. Boeing's 737 MAX fleet was grounded around the world in March 2019 after a second deadly crash involving that model. 346 people died in the accidents in Indonesia and Ethiopia. Since then, Boeing has introduced software changes and new pilot training programs aimed at making the plane safer. U.S. regulators gave the system the green light 2 weeks ago, although safety officials in other countries have yet to follow suit. Analysts say that convincing passengers to get back on the MAX may be another story.
People are not going to flock to the 737 MAX by choice until they are made to feel confident about the plane. There have been hundreds of thousands of hours spent improving the software. Pilots are now required to go through flight simulator training, which was not required before. They have a lot more control over the plane, including the software. And other improvements have been made. So I think that the plane will be safe.
U.S. lawmakers' stalemate over another round of coronavirus stimulus continues. The top Democrats in both the Senate and House of Representatives said on Wednesday that they would support a bipartisan compromise proposal, which was put forth by a group of moderate lawmakers yesterday. The $908 billion package was billed as a short-term relief package to tide over struggling businesses and households. Donald Trump, however, has signaled support for a leaner proposal put forth by Republicans. Millions of out-of-work Americans could lose their emergency support at the end of December if Congress doesn't act before then. Well, U.S. markets rose after those Democratic leaders spoke earlier on. Wall Street continued its record-breaking start to December. After a relatively muted session, we saw stocks climbing towards the end of trade there. Just the Nasdaq ending below the flat line there. The S&P 500 managed another record close. Shares of Salesforce closed down 8.5% after it announced it would buy the messaging software developer Slack for $27 billion. Earlier, we saw stocks in London climbing sharply after the UK approved a coronavirus vaccine for distribution. The FTSE 100 up about 1.25% on the close. Well, Pfizer and BioNTech say they're beginning to transport doses of their coronavirus vaccine to the UK after health officials there approved it for emergency distribution. Other pharmaceutical giants hope to follow suit soon, but with many of the vaccines requiring specialist storage facilities, transporting enough doses around the world poses a huge logistical challenge. Ellen Gainsford explains.
This freezer is a new front line in the fight against the coronavirus. Several of the prospective vaccines need to be kept cold to remain effective. Pfizer's jab must be stored at -70 degrees Celsius. That's colder than the Antarctic. And Moderna's at -20, which is similar to a domestic freezer. Transporting them poses a huge logistical challenge. With governments around the world scrambling to safeguard their citizens, demand for specialist refrigeration units has shot up.
Orders have massively increased, which means we are shifting production so that we can offer enough freezers for market demand, so that the vaccines can be safely distributed.
The airline industry will also play a key role. Pharmaceutical cargo demands specialist handling equipment. Usually, dry ice is used to keep vials of vaccine at super low temperatures. But there are restrictions on its use, as the gas it produces interferes with the breathable air on board aircraft. Airlines are also looking into other ways to maintain ultra-low temperatures. The global rollout of a vaccine is expected to generate 65,000 tons of air freight, which is 5 times the air vaccine trade in 2019.
Well, the pharmaceutical giants that have been researching those coronavirus vaccines insist that they're committed to getting the vaccine to all corners of the globe, not just to advanced economies. I've been speaking to the OECD's chief economist, Laurence Boone, about the need for international cooperation on what she described as a truly global problem.
When we look at the global financial crisis, it affected less than than 10 countries, and yet there was a global response in the 2009 London summit and many other times. This time it's a very global crisis, but responses have been mostly national. I think the best response, to this, the best way to show that international cooperation still work is to organize at the global level the vaccination for all countries who haven't got the same means as advanced OECD countries. There's a platform for this called COVAX, and we must make sure that those vaccines and the treatment against coronavirus, which will be developed, reach out to these lower income economies at about the same speed as what they do for advanced economies.
And you can watch the rest of that interview in this week's People and Profit. That'll be airing at 4:45 p.m. Paris time tomorrow.
Okay, Kate, thanks so much. That's it for now. Stay tuned for more world news here on France 24.